Something about the word heretic. It just rolls off the tongue. Don't you think? I think Slipknot says it best when they say, what's it like to be a heretic? It's a good question, really. And if you were to ask Hugh Grant, well, you'd get a whole mess of answers, mostly having to do with narcissism and projection. So today, we're going to be talking about the new movie Heretic, A24 movie, and I'm excited to talk about this one because, guys, Hugh Grant has entered his villain era, and I am here for it. Heretic is an A24 movie written and directed by Scott Beck and Bryan. This duo is also responsible for A Quiet Place from 2018. The story follows two Mormon missionaries who attempt to convert Hugh Grant's character, Mr. Reed, only to soon figure out that he is much more sinister than he seems. At face value, it's a basic premise, right? You have two girls go into a man's house, they become trapped essentially in his home, and the guy is just a psychopath, basically, right? However, with the addition of the religious element, I think it creates for a pretty wild ride, and it explores both belief and disbelief.
It's a simple choice, but it should not be made simply. Belief or disbelief.
I personally think the script is pretty spot on in Heretic. The two girls realize pretty quickly that they are not much of a physical threat to Mr. Reed, but they know they can be an intellectual one. This is one of the parts I like about the movie. There is quite a bit of really great dialogue here between the girls and Mr. Reed. The script almost begs for the audience to listen and for their attention, and it makes it seems like every single word in the movie has some sort of meaning. For example, Hugh Grant gives a brilliant monologue in which he relates religions to songs and board games, making the point that each religion is really just an iteration of the previous one. Of course, Sister Barnes gives a great rebuttal, and the interchange between the two had me locked in the entire time, and it's also a great tension-building moment. And there are also many other moments in this film like this one. The movie's a bit of a slow burn. I could see how some people would think it's a little bit too slow or kind of leaning towards the boring side. I didn't get this, and I personally like movies if they are able to pull off this slow burn approach, and I thought this one was able to do it. It is a lot of talking, but like I said, it will have you laser focused on every word spoken, and because of this, I think that the movie was given the proper pacing throughout. Heretic is kind of an interesting one because it's so complex in the words spoken, yet so simple in the premise and the setting. This juxtaposition is something that I love about the movie, and it also makes it seem a little bit more realistic, like something that could actually happen. There are only 3 characters really in the whole entire movie, and the whole movie is really just set in one place, which is Mr. Reed's home. And of course, the performance of all 3 lead characters is what complements the script so well. Hugh Grant's character obviously is remarkable. Like we said, Hugh Grant is in his villain era. He is feeling himself. He is pretty brilliant. And he's so charming, and what makes it kind of funny is that even when he starts to become more sinister, when the girls start to see kind of a scarier side of him, he still is pretty charming, which makes him a really compelling antagonist in my eyes. Sister Barnes, played by Sophie Thatcher, and Sister Paxton, played by Chloe East, together are the perfect combination of pretty brave and confident, yet very naive and timid at the same time. They are extremely believable in their roles in my eyes, and they make pretty logical choices throughout the movie, which is something I will always be able to appreciate in a protagonist. While the movie, of course, has Mr. Reed challenge the girls based on religion throughout, there's also a few parts where we see the girls challenge each other a little bit too, which is really kind of interesting. It's an interesting dilemma. Will the two Mormon girls take separate paths? Will they take the same paths? How will they question their religion in different ways, even though allegedly they believe the exact same thing? You'll have to go and find out. The whole adventure then leads to a pretty notable ending in my opinion. The ending is kind of up to the interpretation of the viewer, which is the type of ending that I do tend to like. There is some foreshadowing which comes full circle at the very end, and it leaves you with some questions about the nature of how things are left, I guess. I think some people will interpret it literally. For me personally, I interpreted it a little bit more metaphorically. But what I like is that it's kind of open-ended. You could kind of take it in a couple of different ways, but the way I took it, I think the ending is kind of brilliantly done. It's kind of beautiful, brings things full circle. Something that I did want a little bit more of in this movie is that kind of cat and mouse, maze game. The trailer made it seem like this aspect was going to be a really big part of it. Like the girls were going to be going into all these different rooms and being faced with a bunch of different trials and tribulations. That didn't really happen. That didn't really come through. They were mostly just in one room the entire time. And I think it kind of would have been cool if they were put to the test more, even if they were put to the test like separately as well. Also, when we finally learn exactly what Mr. Reed is trying to prove to the girls, and then we consider everything leading up to this moment, his motives seem a bit unclear at the end. My explanation for this, personally, is that he's just a narcissistic psychopath theologist who just goes through all of these antics just to get that own on these two cute little Mormon girls. For what? Because he's just so profound. That's my interpretation. But I do wish they buttoned up a more thoughtful and obvious set of motives for this character, and I didn't feel they did that properly. But overall, guys, I am happy with this movie. I think the 3 performances given were spectacular. The script has a way of really captivating its audience, and the ending is pretty beautiful in its own right, and you kind of get to do what you want with it or think of it how you want. I would have liked a little bit more of what it seemed like we were promised in the trailer, and for our main antagonist's motives to be more clear to the audience. But in general, I thought it was well done. I was interested. I thought it was thought-provoking. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Let's see what the general consensus is of this one. It's looking like a 3.6 average audience rating. There's obviously not too many ratings in yet. 92% Rotten Tomatoes. Again, I think this one is thought-provoking. It's definitely not for everyone. I do think some people might think it's a little bit too slow. I didn't, but I would recommend it. I think it's obviously meticulously written, something that we don't always get in horror, so we got to take advantage of that, right? Also, how many Mormon horrors are there? I don't know if I've seen any. There's so much religious horror out there, but I'm trying to think if there's any Mormon horror. Put in the comments if there's any good Mormon horror that I should watch. It's almost like they tiptoe away from that. Also, I will say, just to add to the end, I was worried that they were just going to end with like making fun of Mormons and making fun of religion. And I was going to be so sad if they did that because these 2 girls are just so cute in it. And I just didn't want it to be about that. But I think the overall message that they went for and then how they wrapped it up with the ending, it was pretty beautiful. It's almost poetic. I really like it. I think that you guys will like it too, but just know it is a bit of a slow burn. I think it will grasp your attention. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. After all, it takes a pretty good actor to go from an orange Oompa Loompa to an unsettling heretic. But what did you guys think? Do you guys like Heretic? What do you guys think of Hugh Grant? What do you guys like? What do you guys dislike? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you for watching, and catch me next time. Peace.